greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Viva Las Vegas edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be coming to you this afternoon from Las Vegas, Nevada. We are at the MGM Grand Hotel, where later tonight, Alabama men's basketball will start play in the 2024 Players Era Festival. More on that coming up, but first we want to go through what's coming up on the show, plus our headlines, thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. First of all, coming up on the show, we'll have a one-on-one conversation with Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson, getting to learn about some of the playing time he had in the Mercer game and really his journey from Martin, Tennessee to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to play for the Crimson Tide. A fun conversation coming up with Ty Simpson. And then I'll also be joined by the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, to get his thoughts on Alabama football plus men's basketball. And finally on the show today, we'll be joined by Antonio Langham, a college football Hall of Famer and our Alabama legend for this week. We'll go to the Crimson Tide football team. A tough Saturday night for the Crimson Tide, falling 24-3 at Oklahoma. Crimson Tide grabbed the initial lead with a Graham Nicholson field goal, but those would be the only points of the game as Alabama was held without a touchdown for the first time since the 2011 LSU game. So a tough loss for the Crimson Tide as Alabama suffers its third loss of the year, and with that drops to number 13 in the AP poll. We'll see later tonight what that means for Alabama's ranking in the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, and some people still have a path for Alabama to make their way to the college football playoff. Some think it may be a loss that knocks Alabama completely out of the playoff. We'll just have to wait and see. There could be more chaos coming up in the next couple weeks before the final CFP rankings are announced. One thing is for sure, Alabama's focused and ready to go against Auburn coming up on Saturday for the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl has been, of course, a dramatic series over the last few years. Most of the dramatics, though, are at Jordan-Hare Stadium, not at home at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, where Alabama has won the last 6 straight home games against Auburn. Hopefully that becomes 7 with the win coming up on Saturday. Coverage will start at 11:30 at Vector Security Champions Lane for the 2:30 kickoff against the Auburn Tigers. Mentioned the men's basketball team here in Las Vegas, ready to go in the Players Era Festival, an NIL-based tournament. So there's some money on the line for these Crimson Tide players as they start play tonight against number 6 Houston. Once again, it's Alabama and Houston in a top 15 matchup. We've seen that now 3 of the last 4 years. It's always been a competitive series. Alabama has won the 2 matchups between Nate Oates and Alabama and Houston and Kelvin Sampson in the last few years. So hopefully another win tonight. And then tomorrow night, the Crimson Tide will take on Rutgers here in Las Vegas as well, and then they will also have a game coming up on Saturday. The opponent and the game time still to be announced, but we will have radio coverage starting at 6 p.m. Central tonight, 8 p.m. Central coming up tomorrow. I'm filling in for Chris Stewart, and I'll be calling the game with Brian Passing. Russ Langer, a local here in Las Vegas, will call the final game with Brian coming up on Saturday. Some good news to pass along as well for the Crimson Tide. LeBaron Philon has been named the SEC Freshman of the Week. Certainly looked great in the games against Purdue and Illinois. So some well-deserved honors for the freshman from Mobile. Women's basketball team this week is in Niceville, Florida, just outside of Destin, Florida. A great tournament, the Emerald Coast Classic. Yesterday, the Crimson Tide picked up a win 83-33, and then today, the Crimson Tide taking on the Clemson Tigers and former Alabama point guard Loyal McQueen, who now plays for Clemson. Alabama currently ranked number 23 in the AP poll, so congratulations to Christy Curry, the Crimson Tide preseason top 25 team, and they've maintained the ranking all throughout this month of November. That's certainly something that's really hard to do, but congratulations for Alabama for doing that. And next week they will have a Monday home game in Tuscaloosa. We'll have more on that on next week's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Then some final notes around Crimson Tide athletics. Congratulations to the newest national champion of the capstone, Doris Limnole. Cross-country national champion, earned that honor over the weekend, and then if you combine some of her track and field individual national championships she won last spring, that's now her second national championship in the last 5 months. Doris is becoming one of the all-time greats at Alabama, and congratulations to her on a cross-country national championship. For the volleyball team, losses this past week to South Carolina and Ole Miss. They will wrap up the regular season coming up on Friday at 3 p.m. against the LSU Tigers. So hopefully fans can make their way to Foster Auditorium to cheer on Rashinda Reed and the volleyball team throughout this season, and the final match coming up on Friday. But now on the show, we want to hear from one of the Crimson Tide quarterbacks that got to play against Mercer. We talked about it with Austin Mack last week. 5 Alabama quarterbacks hit the field, and one of them, the first one off the bench for Jalen Milroe, was Ty Simpson, who even played some in this last ball game against Oklahoma. One quick note, this interview was recorded before the Oklahoma game, before we made the road trip out to Oklahoma and Las Vegas, so just keep that in mind as you watch. But Ty has a great story of how he chose Alabama from a lot of competitive offers all around the Southeastern Conference, and Clemson as well, but he talks about his development as a quarterback and what could be ahead for him, not just in his immediate future at Alabama and hopefully in the NFL, but maybe after his playing days are over. More on that coming up in this conversation with Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We're back at the podcast studio inside the Advantage Center at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Roger Hoover now pleased to be joined by Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson, who helped Alabama to that win against Mercer. A lot of great experience for Ty in your Alabama career. Just roll Tide. How's everything going?
Yeah, it's been great. How are you doing?
Doing very well. And again, it was a fun Saturday against Mercer as we saw Alabama pick up the win. We got to see you with some extended playing time. What'd that mean to you?
It meant a lot, especially since last year. I got a couple chances, and I feel like I'm a different player. I feel like I'm growing a lot more, and so being able to kind of take those 2 drives and just kind of play free and just play ball, it felt really good. It felt like I was back in high school, got a lot of confidence back underneath me, and I'm just excited to get more chances.
It was a fun day to see really everybody in the quarterback room get an opportunity.
No
Jalen, then you, Dylan Lonergan. We talked to Austin Mack about his touchdown pass, and then even for a guy like Cade Carruth, how meaningful is it to see him on that field?
Yeah, we're a tight-knit group, the quarterback room. We always help each other out, and the crazy part is, everybody knows only one can play. So, Jalen does a good job representing all of us. But getting to see just everybody have shared success in that room and getting a chance to partake in a win, especially guys like Carruth, who, may not do a lot for us in practice, but he signals and gets us to play and gets that's a lifelong dream of his, to be able to play in a real game in Bryant-Denny Stadium for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And it was just really cool to see the growth of everybody, like Austin and Dylan getting in there, and then me. It really was a heartfelt moment for all of us. We got a picture after the game, so it was great experience.
That's really cool to see. And for this football team, only a handful of games left this year. Just from your perspective, how have you seen this team grow throughout the year?
Yeah, we started off hot, of course, with a big Georgia win. And I think kind of towards the middle of the season, we kind of hit a hump. We kind of got humbled a little bit. Like, hey, this isn't, just because we beat this team doesn't mean that we're, some just Joker night, I guess you can say. We're vulnerable in some spots, and we learned that, and that's why, as Coach DeBoer says, always go 1-0. So after that Vanderbilt week, we kind of went 1-0, we got back on track. And the Tennessee week, of course, everybody knows we didn't play our best, but it's about bouncing back each and every week and not looking towards the future. So when we went to Baton Rouge and we played well and we dominated the line of scrimmage and every aspect of the game, we just got to bounce off that. We came to Mercer. We got the job done. Now we're not focused on Auburn. We're not focused on what seed we're going to be in the playoff. We're focused on Oklahoma, going in there at 6:30 at night in Norman and taking care of business.
We're certainly looking forward to that. And for you, with more experience in your career now, do you feel like one of the leaders of this team?
Yeah, certainly, especially since coming back. In this day and age, a lot of people would have probably left, especially with the circumstances that I had. But, being here when Coach left and being here for 3 years, in my class, you got guys like Tyler Booker, Jahad Campbell, Kendrick Law, Jamarian Miller, guys like that who are, big-time playmakers for us and who are vocal leaders in the locker room. And me being a quarterback and an older guy as well, like my voice is just as much important as theirs and just as heard as much as theirs. So, I think it's a job of mine, even though I don't play, to make sure that these guys know the standard and know how we do things around here.
Let's go back to your recruitment. And first of all, just growing up, you grew up really in a football household. Did you always have a football in your hand growing up?
Yeah, no doubt. So for people who don't know, my dad's a head college football coach at the University of Tennessee Martin. He's been there for 19 years. He'll be going on 20. So basically, Martin, Tennessee's been all I known. He went to Mississippi State. He's from Mississippi and then transferred to Southern Miss to play baseball. So I've always kind of loved the SEC, more than Ole Misses and the Mississippi States, but my mom's a big Tennessee fan. So I kind of was in a house divided. Didn't have any clue, that I would be going to Alabama. But as the recruiting process went, it was always down to like, Alabama, Clemson, and Tennessee. Those were the three that always stood out. Just because one, Alabama, the standard that it had up, of course, Coach Saban was there. Clemson, it had its perks with, Dabo and kind of the family name, and then Tennessee, being from Tennessee, trying to go back there and kind of build up their program. And of course, all my friends are Tennessee fans, so it was a hard decision. But at the end of the day, it felt like home here in Tuscaloosa, and I wouldn't change my journey for the world. So.
We always hear stories, but how good of a recruiter is Coach Saban?
He'll tell you he doesn't like recruiting, but he definitely does. He's great. He just kind of tells you how it is. One thing that I really enjoyed was, NIL was kind of just getting started when I was getting recruited, and we would talk about that and talk about, well, Coach, if I stayed in Tennessee, I think my NIL value would be more being an in-state guy. And he just kind of told me, he was like, I get that, but you look at our guys who have come here, they make their money on the back end. You may get your money up front now, but guys who, you think about Tua, you think about Jared Allen, Devontae Smith, guys like that who are going to make their money on their max contracts after their first year in the NFL. Like, that's where, he kind of sold me on it. And, I couldn't disagree with facts, you know what I mean? So just being able to spit those statements and seeing what he had to say about that and just being very genuine was cool. And it was hard to say no.
And going back to your dad for a minute, you mentioned the longtime head coach at UT Martin. What did you enjoy most about getting to grow up around that program? Was it some of the meetings, some of the road trips around the ball games, being on the sideline, things like that?
Yeah, all of it, man. Seriously, the road trips were fun. I remember, going to Neyland Stadium and walking over and meeting Peyton Manning and talking to him. I was, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years old. That was cool. Going to his meetings, and kind of as I grew older, I knew what he was talking about, and I could follow up now instead of just sitting there and just enjoying to be there. Going to practices and seeing how it worked. I look back on it now, I was like, man, I had no clue what was going on when I was a middle school, elementary school kid. But now seeing there, it's like, man, like it's nothing has changed from, whether it's an Alabama practice or UT Martin practice. Like, Alabama practice just has a bunch of people and a lot of facilities. They're UT Martin, and we got the rodeo arena and just a couple of restaurants on the side of it. But man, I really enjoyed being around the football program there at UT Martin, and I'm very fortunate that I had a father and that support system there in Martin to let me be able to do that.
And obviously, he's keeping up with his own team, coaching them. He can't, check in on every single practice or see everything that's going on. But how good of a sounding board is he through the ups and downs of the season?
Oh, he's great. I talk to him every day. Especially we kind of bounce ideas back and forth of who's playing this week and who I'm playing this week, and we talk about what they do, and if he's faced a team like that or if I've faced a team like that, and we just kind of just talk ideas. And he's as smart as a coach as I know, especially being around him so much. I fully believe that he could coach in the SEC or anywhere. So being able to just talk ideas and ask him, like, man, like, I don't know, how I'm going to be able to see this in a game. How do you see it? And he'll give me tips and stuff like that. And he's a great, just resource to use.
Again, you make the decision to join Alabama, and the first quarterback you got to be around as a starter was Bryce Young. What'd you pick up the most from Bryce?
Bryce was awesome. I can't say enough good things about Bryce, especially me being there as a freshman, kind of not understanding, what the standard is here at Alabama, and kind of just getting my feet wet and understanding, what is supposed to be, coming out of the quarterback room. The biggest thing that I learned from him probably is just, how cool and calm and collective he was. Bryce never got mad. He would always, it was always his fault. He would always take matters into his own hands, because he fully believed that, the quarterback position is what makes everybody else go. And that's something that I learned through him, just because, man, like, he didn't, get on anybody unless he had to. He didn't, pitch a fit or anything like that. He was Bryce. Everything was steady Eddie. And he was a great person to be around, and people attracted to Bryce, and people wanted to play harder because of Bryce. And that's one thing that I really took from Bryce, and I still talk to him to this day about just thanking him and just telling him how much I appreciate what he's done for me. And he probably doesn't even realize how much he's done for me, but just being around him for a year was awesome. I couldn't thank him enough.
Then going into 2023, a lot of questions about who would be the quarterback. What do you remember about fall camp and the competition you had with Jalen Milroe, Tyler Buckner as well? I imagine you guys still kept a good friendship, but I mean, that competition, that had to be stressful at times.
Oh yeah, it certainly was. Look back on it now, I certainly wish I could do a lot of different things back then, but I also think that I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through those trials and tribulations. It was different for sure, especially the three quarterback rotation that we had. Not many people in the country did that, I would think. But being in there, in that room with Tommy Rees and Derek Dooley, and then those players in general just kind of could see, the difference in the differences that we played with. Jalen and his athletic ability. Tyler Buckner is probably one of the smartest players I've been around just from a football standpoint. And we just kind of, all grew off each other just on how they read things and how they played the game a different way. And I think that it certainly helped me just kind of being a younger guy and not, having a lot of pressure on myself just to do things the right way. And looking at those guys and they just play free. And, I think it certainly has helped me and certainly has helped me grow to where I am today.
You talked a minute ago about Bryce Young staying calm no matter what was happening in a ball game. And I imagine for you, that had to help in the South Florida game. Tyler gets to start, you come in, you have the lightning delay, just not much is going right. How did you stay calm and lead Alabama to a very important win?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I tell you what, I probably, wasn't ready as much as I wanted to be, I guess you could say. It kind of caught me off guard. And that's one thing that I said earlier is I kind of grew from it, and I was immature back then. I kind of was, more worried about, how people saw me and how, how the game should, how I wanted to play the game instead of how I should have played the game. I should have just relaxed and played free and, not cared about, who cares about what other people think. I should have just taken what they give me. I should have just played the game how it was supposed to be played and not tried to make a big statement on, who should have been starter at the beginning of the year or who should have been the starter now. You know what I mean? So just being able to just grow from that and look back on it and just be like, man, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I failed. I'm glad I didn't play to where I wanted to play, so I can be able to grow and understand it. That's water under the bridge. Look where you were then to where you are now.
And look what happened with the team. I mean, now with a year of perspective, if Alabama loses that game, even with the win against Georgia in the championship, not going to the playoff, do you have a lot of pride looking back and, you were able to lead that scoring drive we needed late in the ballgame to put it away?
Oh, certainly. And, I talked to guys who were on that team last year and were in that game, and I tell them, man, it was the most fun I've had in a while. Just playing the game and just getting the team to a win. Now, granted, probably wasn't the best game that we've played, but just being able to be out there with those guys was great, and they really appreciate it too. But Jalen's was a great player or is a great player, and certainly gave us a lot of boost in that offense. And so he coach made the decision for the team, and I respected it, and I just it's not fair to other guys like Tyler Booker or Malachi Moore, or Deontay Lawson, who give their all each and every day for this team. For a guy who may not have the biggest role but has a role like myself, and just give up on the team. When my number was called, whether if it was the Ole Miss game after when I got the 2-point conversion, if I was complaining and being upset because I didn't get to start that game, that may have been a big difference in the game. And so I look at those guys and I think, man, no matter what my role is, I want to play for people like that.
Yeah, that Ole Miss game is a perfect example of being ready when your number's called because Jalen's helmet flies off, so he can't play that next play. Is that just an example of how ready you stay for any moment even now?
Yeah, certainly. And I think too, as you go through each and every game, you learn and learn and learn. Like, man, like, it could be one play and it could change your whole career. I think about, the Florida State team last year. Jordan Travis goes down. They go through two different backups just trying to be able to bypass games, and I talk to, Coach DeBoer and these guys all the time. And, my job is for the offense not to skip a beat when, in case something happens to Jalen. And I go, whether it's, in practice or in the warm-ups or anything like that, knowing that the guys have confidence in me that, okay, Jalen is out, we're going to go down and win the game no matter what, even if ties in. So that's my job as the backup quarterback. And, hopefully next year that'll be my job to, be the guy and know that, the next guy is ready.
And for you, we've seen you, of course, throw well in ball games, but late last year we got to see you run pretty well as well. Wasn't it the Chattanooga game? How long was that run you had?
Well, I don't know how long it was, but it certainly didn't count enough
right.
to where I wanted it to with the drop ball. So.
But I mean, again, showed impressive athletic ability. What I know it was a frustrating ending with the way the ball dropped, but I mean, still showing your elusiveness and showing that, if you are called upon as a quarterback runner, you're pretty effective. That's got to be good.
Yeah, and I think I probably, need to sometimes use it more, especially during practice. I think my best ability is to pass, especially within the pocket. But I think the best guys you look at, in the league, you're like, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, guys who make plays out of the pocket or what makes them so special. But yeah, last year, I guess it would have been the 1 year anniversary last Saturday. It would have been nice to hold on to the ball, but like I said, it's a learning moment. I promise you it won't ever happen again.
Hey, thanks, Abby. You did a lot of good things leading up to that. You mentioned talking with Coach DeBoer and the transition from Coach DeBoer, or from Coach Saban to Coach DeBoer. When you started to learn about the offense, what did you like about it, what these guys do?
Yeah, I mean, of course, who as a quarterback, who doesn't like throwing the ball down the field? You look at the Michael Penix and the Washington guys last year, man, they're throwing it, 30, 45 times a game. Like that made me happy for sure. But I think the biggest thing that I really enjoyed is just, how much they just want you to play. I felt like, during my first couple of years, I felt not robotic, but I almost felt like that, I didn't play as free because I wanted to do things the exact way, where at the end of the day, it's always, it's a game. Just because they're playing this coverage doesn't mean that the ball has to go here. Something could happen. And I think that's what they've really kind of emphasized and kind of told me. It's just, man, like, just play. Like, who cares about what happens? Like, just imagine you're back in high school, and they're going to be better players, so you're not going to get away with everything, but just play. Like, this is, a kid's game that you are, here to do and just have fun, and this is the rules within the system and the offense. And I think through the spring, that's what I kind of had to, kind of really learn and emphasize. Just, man, like, just play. Like, the pocket collapse, like, go make a play. It doesn't matter, if it's on, one hitch or two hitch. Just enjoy and play ball. And I think, looking back and going through the spring and talking to Coach DeBoer, and even now is what, something that he's really emphasizing to everybody, because we don't, during practice, we take so many team reps. And, my dad always asked him, just as a coach, like, what, why are you taking, however many team reps? Like, y'all don't do, individual and stuff. He's like, Coach, I just want these guys to get team reps in a game-like situations. Like, that's what, we're going to do on Saturday. We're not going to do 7-on-7. We're not going to do, quarterback indie and stuff like that. We'll still do that, but that's not what it's going to be like in a game. We're going to be 11-on-11, and I think that's what's been really cool about it.
And whether it's been in practices or even the games you've played in, I mean, you got to be impressed with the depth that Alabama has at wide receiver, because I think we see Jalen with some of the frontline starters, things like that, but even Rico Scott catches a touchdown pass in this last ball game. I mean, there's just talent all over the place with that group, and the tight ends too.
Oh, absolutely, and give credit, to those guys, but also, the Coach Shepard and Coach Brian Ellis. They do a great job every single day of getting the best out of those guys and really staying on them just about the details. But I can't say enough great things about those guys and how hard they work. They run and do literally everything. You look at the wideout group, literally all day during practice they run and catch. Like that's what they do, and they block when it's a running play. You look at the tight ends; they're asked to do what O-lineman, the left tackle, will do, but they also are asked to do what a wide receiver can do. That's a big difference. So guys like C.J. Dupree, Josh Cuevas, Robert. Or not Robert, Robbie Oots, and even the young guys like Ty Lockwood, Danny Lewis, and Jay Lindsey. Man, I can't say enough great things about those guys, and I just really appreciate everything that they do for the team.
Well, as you mentioned, getting ready for next year, obviously your focus is going to be on what you can do to help this football team win, and then hopefully a good career in the NFL after that. But with growing up the son of a coach, being around the game as long as you have, could coaching be in your future one day?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is what I want to do. I told Coach DeBoer on his first meeting, I was like, you were the successor of Coach Saban. Now I want to be the successor of you. When you retire here and you have a great career like Coach Saban had, I want to be done with my NFL career and take your job. And he started laughing. He was like, well, we'll try to make that happen. But yeah, I love coaching. I would love to be coaching with my dad one day. But I love ball. I'm a ball kid. So.
I will look forward to seeing you playing more for Alabama. And just final question, how much have you enjoyed just this experience, getting to be an Alabama football player?
It's a great experience. It may have not been how I drew it up, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the people. I love this town. I love this campus. There's not a better feeling than being an Alabama football player and playing in Bryant-Denny with that scripted A on it. Just the standard that you uphold, the pressure that you're, being put on is a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Fans been pretty good to you? When you see them in person, I mean, it's got to be a lot of praise.
No, they're great. They're great, and I really appreciate everything that they do.
Well, we appreciate the hard work you're putting in for the Crimson Tide this year. Ty Simpson, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate you guys. Roll Tide.
Experience racing like never before, from the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Thanks to Ty Simpson for all the time he gave us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. And now we check in with somebody that's been very busy here on the network, and that is the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart. He was in Oklahoma to call the football game this past Saturday. He's back at home in Tuscaloosa getting ready for Alabama to play host to Auburn coming up this week in the Iron Bowl. And also, don't forget, tomorrow he'll be hosting Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Chris Stewart joins us to talk about everything that happened on Saturday for the Crimson Tide, the path ahead for this football team, plus some thoughts on men's basketball as well. Here's the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart. Chris, Roll Tide, it's good to see you. How's everything going back home?
It's good. Roll Tide and hold on 17. That's all I've got to tell you while you're out there.
That's very good advice. Well, we'll get into the conversation talking about Crimson Tide football, and obviously there's no easy way to talk about it. It was a disappointing Saturday night. What are your feelings a day or two removed from what we saw in Norman against Oklahoma?
Yeah, frustrating because you go into that ball game. We knew at kickoff that if Alabama wins, then they're going to be in the SEC championship game. And if you are, and let me clarify. I'm sorry. If you win, you're going to play Auburn for the right to play in the SEC championship game. It was all right there in front of you. And because if you're in the SEC championship game, I know we don't have a sample size to work with. This is the first year of the college football playoff, but I've said I can't imagine the runner-up in the SEC, even if it is a 3-loss team, not being in the playoffs as high as Alabama had been ranked and would have been ranked had they continued to win. But they didn't. And frankly, as much as an Alabama team has been run out of the stadium, we very seldom have seen anything like that in a long time, where it's 3-touchdown game. And we all know, if you watched it, that there's a couple of plays that could and probably should have gone differently that would have changed the look of that ball game. But the reality is the score was the score, and you don't get it done, and you put yourself in a spot where you have to just wait and see and hope for another. You frankly have to hope for another day in college football like the one that took place, where all of the crazy stuff in front happens to a bunch of teams. And if that happens, then maybe you're back in that mix once again. Certainly you hope so. But it's out of your hands now, other than obviously you've got to try to take care of business against an Auburn team that's playing probably its best football of the year right now.
All that in mind, just how do you expect this coaching staff and these players to respond getting ready for what is a hugely important game coming up on Saturday against Auburn? But based on what you've seen so far, how do you think this group responds?
Yeah, Roger, I think they will respond well. I think they understand that this game as a standalone means as much as it does to everybody in the state of Alabama. I hope it means, and it should mean, a great deal to all of them. The coaching staff understands, even though it's new for most of them. They know the Iron Bowl and the national reputation that game has. So I would be shocked if they're not prepared, motivated, excited to play, and ready to go to work to do everything they can to win that game, but also to keep their hopes alive. We don't know how this thing is going to play out. If you have another unbelievably goofy day, just like we had this past weekend, there are a lot of dominoes that can still fall that would put Alabama back in a college football playoff. But again, right now, you don't need that as motivation. It's Auburn. It's winning the game. It's reestablishing and who you are and who you want to be, and setting yourself up for the best bowl position you possibly can, whether that's a playoff game or just a traditional bowl game that's not part of the playoff mix. So there is a lot on the line, but it doesn't need any more than the fact that it's Alabama Auburn. That stands alone.
With that as well, how special is this rivalry to you? What are your first Iron Bowl memories?
Oh, man. I've talked about this many times, but my dad worked at Legion Field. He was an usher, and I remember him going to every sporting event there. And when I was too young to go, he would bring me something from there. It was usually a game program. I've still got the game program of Coach Bryant's 315th win over Auburn. It was Auburn's home game, so it's an Auburn game program, but Pat Dye and Paul Bryant are on the cover of that game program. I remember my best friend growing up, who still is one of my best friends today. He was an Auburn fan, and of course, for me, growing up a Crimson Tide fan, we would pick at each other, and we still send texts throughout the course of the year, every day, I should say, in relation to something, and usually the ball game comes up pretty frequently. But it can be truly brother against brother, and family member against family member, boyfriend against girlfriend. There was a time in the teenage years where that was the case as well. It was just it's an amazing game and what it means. And for me, again, going back to the days of Coach Bryant, and I'm so fortunate. I never met Coach Bryant, but so many people that have been a part of that game over the years, coaches, players on both sides that I've gotten to know and be friends with and understand. I'll never forget a conversation with the late Pat Sullivan. We were talking one day about he and Johnny Musso were great friends, and even though they played obviously at different schools, but they were great friends in high school, competitors, but friends. And even in college, playing each other and then going out to eat with their girlfriends at the time, who became, I believe, their wives. And he said, I don't think you could do that. I remember him saying when we talked 15 years ago about it, he said, I don't know if you can do that anymore. He said, because of social media and fan bases, people would get after you too much. But he said, that's the way it was. You'd fight tooth and nail, but we were friends. We were family. And you know how this works. It's kind of tough. Andy Bertram's one of my best friends in broadcasting, and I can't enjoy his success most of the time, and he can't enjoy mine because of how it impacts the other school or team. And we always say to each other, hope you have a great broadcast, and we can mean that sincerely. It's just tough because you don't want to see his team win. You don't want to see my team win. That's part of it. But it's the way the game goes, and it's such a huge honor just to play a small part in it and have the privilege of broadcasting it.
It's the Iron Bowl coming up on Saturday. But first of all, Chris, here in Las Vegas, we're going to be busy with men's basketball. It's Alabama taking part in the Players Era Festival. A great win last week against Illinois in the CM Newton Classic. What are your expectations for Coach Oates and the basketball team? First of all, against Houston and Rutgers, and then we'll see who they play coming up on Saturday.
First of all, a big thank you for falling on the sword and taking that tough assignment of going to Vegas for a couple of days so I don't have to.
It's the least I can do, Chris.
I understand. It will be nice to have some more time to get ready for Saturday and to do the radio show with Coach DeBoer on Wednesday night and be a little more relaxed and not have a 5 a.m. flight, as you will, on Thanksgiving Day. But from a basketball standpoint, I think we saw a team that understood that even though they played pretty well in spurts at Purdue, when you're in the position you're now in, which is being the hunted rather than the hunter, you've got to be ready for a full 40 minutes or maybe beyond. And I thought they did a much better job of that against Illinois. Granted, they got to do it in front of a more friendly crowd than what they did playing in West Lafayette a week earlier. But this is a team that should be playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing a Houston team that I believe only has the one setback, and that was to obviously a very good Auburn team. So I fully expect a great – it's one of the things I love, Roger, one of many things I love about college basketball. You can have these type games, and it will have the feel of a late round, if not Final Four, NCAA tournament game. And they will play tooth and nail. We've had some great matchups with Houston in recent years, and I think it will be incredibly intense, and it will help prepare you for the NCAA tournament. But it ain't going to keep you out. If you lose, it's not a guarantee you're in. If you win, even though both teams with their schedules and their talent levels should feel pretty good about the fact they'll be in, this still is one where you can lay it all on the line. And when it's over with, you're going to have a much better gauge of who you are as a team. But there's so much more to be played. It doesn't keep you out of a playoff. It doesn't cost you a championship. Regardless of the outcome, you're going to be better off for having played it. And I just hope it's one where they come out with a victory and play very, very well. And I think they will. It's a great week. It's a great opportunity and a little bit different format as well for the players. And not that they need added incentive, but they'll have it in this one. It's the new day and age of NIL and the professionalism, if you will, of the college game. And I'm interested in seeing how guys respond with that as well.
We look forward to it. We miss you out here, Chris, in Las Vegas, but thank you for holding down the fort back home with Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show coming up on Wednesday. And then, of course, our Iron Bowl coverage coming up on Saturday as well. Just all the best to you the rest of the week, and have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for your time. Roll Tide.
Same to you, buddy. Roll Tide. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, a good time. And again, if you'll just put 5 on red 33 for me, I would appreciate it.
Roll Tide. We'll see you, Chris.
Hey, this is Kevin Riley, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona. where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Coming up on Saturday, it'll be special to honor two great Alabama football players as our honorary captains. First of all, David Palmer, recently inducted to the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. The Deuce will get his recognition on the field alongside one of his teammates and somebody he battled in practice all throughout his time at the capstone, Antonio Langham, who is, of course, going into the College Football Hall of Fame this year. Antonio joins us now as our Legend of the Week to talk about the great honors he's received from the College Football Hall of Fame, plus everything going on for him and his life right now. It's an exciting time for Antonio Langham, as you'll hear, and here's our one-on-one conversation with Alabama defensive back and College Football Hall of Famer Antonio Langham. Antonio, roll tide. It's great to, of course, have you back in Tuscaloosa and especially get celebrated at Bryant-Denny Stadium this weekend. How's everything going?
Roger, good to talk to you. Everything's going good. I can't complain, man. It's exciting times for Antonio Langham right now, so I really can't complain. Just the opportunity to be honored and to have the opportunity to be honored for the making the College Football Hall of Fame and all that good stuff. So it's always good when you get to come back. As I say, you get to come back home.
Absolutely. And your career has been celebrated a lot ever since you left Alabama, but you mentioned the College Football Hall of Fame. How special was it to receive that recognition?
Oh man, it was an emotional moment. I was actually at a coaching clinic, and AD Greg Byrne, he called me that morning and asked me, was I at home? And I was like, no, I'm out of town right now. I'm in Nashville at a coaching clinic, but I'll be back later on that night, back home. And then about 3:00, he called me again. He was just like, look, well, I don't think you'll get home in time. So he says, I just want to tell you something. I'm like, okay. He was like, congratulations, man, you're a Hall of Famer. And at first I'm like, come on, man, stop playing. And he was like, no, I'm serious. So, I had the emotions, but I tried to hold it together. I had this big smile on my face. So all the guys around me were like, man, why are you smiling? So I was like, oh, nothing. Because he was like, told me to hold on to it for a few minutes because they were getting ready to announce it. But I think by the time he let me know, my phone just started dinging and dinging and dinging and dinging. And I'm like, all I'm seeing is congratulations, text messages, congratulations. In my mind, I'm like, well, he must have waited a second or two too late before it came out. But I did. I got away from the guys for a little bit, and I had a moment, emotional moment, because I thought about a lot of people that played a part in my life, and some that are still here, some that are not here. That I know for a fact that my grandmother was still living. She would be the one, and she would be more excited than I am, because she was the one who always pushed me. She made sure I was at every football practice, every basketball, whatever sport I was playing. She made sure I was at those practices. She was at those games. So.
Yeah, that's really special recognition. And then with that, you get to go to New York, of course, everything that goes along with that. Just how exciting of a time is that for you and your family?
It's going to be very exciting. I'm sure that there'll be some representatives from the university there. I think Greg Byrne is the AD is going to be there. Probably a couple of people that are from the university, from the athletic department, will be there with him. So Coach Stallings is supposed to be there. Hopefully, Brother Oliver, my DB coach and defensive coordinator, will be there. But I also know there are quite a few of my teammates coming out, man. So that's the real special part about it is those guys that I went to battle with for 4 years that'll be there, because to have them out there is special, because I don't go in the Hall of Fame without those guys. I can't line up by myself and play against 11 guys who think I'm going to be successful. So those guys, man, all my teammates that'll be out there, those who can make it out and those who won't be able to make it out. But at the end of the day, I want them all to know, first of all, the University of Alabama and everybody a part of the athletic department, from our president, Dr. Stewart Bell, to our AD, Greg Byrne, faculty and staff. They're coaches that I played for when I was at Alabama. I want all of them to know that I'm going in the Hall of Fame and they're going in with me because they all played a part in my accomplishments here at the University of Alabama. A lot of people say, well, you did all the work. Yeah, but I had a bunch of people that played a part in me being able to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. If I don't have the guys that coach me and the guys I line up with to be a part of this, and the fans that were there cheering us on and behind us 100%, then I don't know if this recognition happens. So I'm truly blessed, grateful, humbled by it, and just I can't say it enough how thankful I am, man.
We're really looking forward to that for you coming up, as well as what's coming up on Saturday. You're an honorary captain before the Iron Bowl, and you're going to be joined by one of your teammates and one of the most special players we've seen wear the crimson jersey, in David Palmer. Just how great is it to reconnect with him, and for also the fans to celebrate everything he did here at the Capstone?
Man, the Deuce is that guy, man. That kind of talent is, like they said, generational talent. You know, it only comes around so often, man. And that dude, just to be able to have watched him for 3 years, we played together for 3 years, and to have to compete against him every day at practice and battle him. I tell people all the time, you go against a David Palmer, man. I don't worry about other guys from other teams, because if I know if I can battle him all day at practice for 2 hours and some change, when I line up against guys from other teams those Saturdays, I felt like that was a breeze, because I just want to get one of the best in the business. So it's always good. We keep in touch. We talk a lot. We hang out a lot. Me and Dave, me and the Deuce, and other guys that live in Birmingham. So that camaraderie, that love that we have for each other, man, it's still there, and we try to get together as much as we can. So I'm excited for that, to be there with the Deuce, man, and get the chance to just connect, and not only me, but to see him get celebrated too. And like I said, he went into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame this year, and he's another one that's deserving of the College Football Hall of Fame. So just to be there with him and for us to just be celebrated together, man, it's a great honor.
And of course, anytime you're getting recognized like this, a lot of people are going to talk about some memorable plays from your playing days. Obviously, I imagine the Florida interception, the SEC championship game, probably gets talked about the most. But what are some other plays around that maybe people bring up to you that go beyond that SEC championship game?
Well, your family is the hardest on you, right? And so all my family members always give me a hard time, and they're like, everybody continues to remember you for only one play. One play, the SEC championship game. Just that one play. You're still relevant off of one play. Then, I sit there and I laugh along with them. And then I had to remind them, okay, let's go back that same year against Mississippi State, block punt for a touchdown. Let's go to Auburn, interception for a touchdown. Let's go back a little further than that. Tennessee, where I broke the career interception record that same season. Not that season, but then my senior year, I tied the interception record against Arkansas. So there are a lot of plays I tell them. I say, you just go back to 91 and run it all the way through. I even made a few plays as a freshman in 90. I said, so let's not get this confused now that it's just that one play.
Well, just not everyone has a whole documentary made about one play like you do.
Yeah, I tell them, I said, some of y'all better check my resume a little bit. So we have fun with it.
That's pretty good. You get to be recognized this week for the Iron Bowl. Just how special is the Alabama-Auburn rivalry to you?
I thought I played in some rivalries in high school, but I never forget my freshman year. My first Iron Bowl experience of actually being in uniform and coming out of that tunnel. I was actually in awe of the whole situation. I found myself looking around in the stands and just taking in the whole atmosphere. And I had teammates they had to tell me, "Hey, freshman, we get ready to play a football game. You got to come out of the stands now and get on the football field." So that rivalry has always meant a lot to the state of Alabama as far as bragging rights are concerned. And they live with it for 364 days a year till it's time to play it again. And no matter how the teams are playing, what the records are, all that goes out the window, because everybody put their life on the line for that game. For 60 minutes, they put their life on the line for that game. So, I don't think you can ask for a better rivalry than you do with the Iron Bowl. And I think that Saturday is going to be another good battle and another good Iron Bowl. And we're going to see it. The good part for us is at home. So we got home field advantage on this one, but it's going to be a battle. Auburn's not going to lay down, and we're not either. So when both teams are battling, it makes for a good Iron Bowl.
Yeah, and final question, how do you hope this Alabama team responds to some of the adversity they've seen this year, especially coming off of that loss last week at Oklahoma?
Well, sometimes you got, as players, you got to understand that because the season is not going the way you want it to go, nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose, but it happens sometimes. It's called adversity. How do you handle it? Do you look at the fact that maybe you don't see the opportunity of possibly getting in the playoffs? So do you shut it down now and you finish strong? And I hope our guys look at the fact that the season wasn't lost. Yeah, we lost some games, but the season wasn't lost. So let's finish it strong. Finish it strong. Go out, win the Iron Bowl. As the saying always goes, it's not how you start, but how you finish. And I seen a quote before that said, success is not judged by the things that you have, but the obstacles that you had to overcome. So hey, we had some obstacles in the way. We had some losses that we had to deal with, but finish it strong. Finish it strong by winning the Iron Bowl and whatever bowl game you get to go to, and then reflect on the season and get ready for next season, the off season and training and all that, and get ready to go. So I just want our guys to know the season is not a wash. So don't shut it down now because you don't see the playoffs in sight or whatever else, because there's still things that you can get from this season that can be used to get you ready for next season. It's that passion, that fire you to say, hey, this is how our season went. I don't want to experience this no more, because look, in our first year with Coach Stallings in 90, we lost the first 3 games out of the gate. Then 91, we lose 1 game. 92, we win the national championship with a new coach, with a new coach at the helm. So sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture and understand that this is how it started this year. It gets better and it gets better, and you get to where you need to be. So I just hope they can stay the course and understand that everything is not lost, and it's just you build from there.
Really well said. Well, Antonio Langham, thank you so much for the time you've given us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network today. All the best coming up with everything coming up this weekend for the Iron Bowl, and especially coming up in New York for the College Football Hall of Fame. We're thrilled for you. We're proud that you're an Alabama legend. Just thank you for your time. Roll Tide.
Roger, thank you. Roll Tide.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Thanks to Antonio Langham for this time. And normally on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we always have the opposing broadcaster join us for the other booth. We will have that interview coming up on demand. We will not have it in time for this show, but Brad Law from the Auburn Sports Network will be joining us as our guest for the other booth presented by Marathon. Check out that coming up on our YouTube channel some point on Wednesday for a full scouting report on the Auburn Tigers. Auburn's really our focus this week as we take a look at our upcoming schedule. Men's basketball tonight, Alabama against Houston. Our radio coverage will start at 6 o'clock across the network, getting you ready for that 7 p.m. tip-off from Las Vegas for that top 15 showdown. And then it's Alabama, of course, taking on Rutgers tomorrow. Our coverage will start at 8 for the 9 p.m. Central tip-off for Alabama against Clifford Amory's old team, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Before that, it will be Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show, starting at 6 p.m. from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Friday, a new edition of Tide TV This Week, on demand at RolledTide.com and to our TV affiliates. Then on Saturday, the Iron Bowl, one of the most special rivalries in all of sports. Kickoff at 2:30. Our coverage will start outside, even though it may be a cold day coming up at Vector Security Champions Lane. Hope you can join us on stage at the Bud Light Backyard starting at 11:30 a.m. for our coverage of Alabama against Auburn. Then we will have a new episode of the Kalen DeBoer television show with Chris Stewart and Coach DeBoer going to our TV affiliates and on demand online at RolledTide.com on Sunday. That's a look at our upcoming schedule. Make sure you follow us us for the latest, especially some behind-the-scenes content coming up from some of our upcoming broadcasts, plus interview clips as well at UA_CTSN. It's going to wrap up this edition from Las Vegas. Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. First of all, a huge thank you to our guests, Ty Simpson, along with Antonio Langham and Chris Stewart. Thank you as well to Ethan Carabin back in our Tuscaloosa studios. He put this entire show together. We really appreciate Ethan for all of his hard work, not only with this show, but running our Yay Alabama booth cam each and every Saturday for Crimson Tide football. Thanks as well to all of you for watching. Now, this is Roger Hoover in Las Vegas. It's time to get ready for Alabama men's basketball tonight in the Players Era Festival, but thank you for watching this edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. Hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving with your friends and family, and then of course we'll see you with all of our friends coming up on Saturday at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium for the Iron Bowl and Roll Tide.